Hi, everyone, and welcome to Whom It May Concerns Hood Professionals. I am your host, AP, and today I have two special co hosts with me, and we're talking about the hot topic surrounding COVID-19 pandemic and the educators and integrating students back to in-person learning. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for introductions. Ladies first.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephanie Bagley. I am an educator with a large urban school district, APS particularly. I work in the capacity of instructional support, and I have worked in education for the past 20 years. This is year 20. And I'm glad to be here today to chop it up with everybody.
Excellent. And last but not least.
And how you doing? I'm Jason Smith. I work in as a special middle school special education teacher here in Atlanta. And see, I've been in education, formal education. This might be my going on my fourth or fifth year. Been working with youth in various forms, youth development, after school programs, and since 2009. So altogether about 12 years.
Okay, so we have some veterans on the line today doing this particular segment. Let me ask you both this. What initially led you into the education field?
What led you, Stephanie?
Okay. Well, while I was in undergrad at Clark Atlanta, I volunteered at a neighborhood elementary school as a mentor and support for the after school program. And at that time, I really developed an interest and connection with the children and the community and thought that, education may be a field where my talents would be better served. At the time, I was preparing for a profession in law and a career in law. And I took a chance and applied to Teach for America a couple years after I graduated. And I was lucky enough to get into the program and to be assigned to Atlanta. So I was able to start working right away in education in the city that inspired me to get into education. So I was lucky in that sense.
Okay. Jason?
Um, for me, it was moving to Atlanta from Long Beach in 2009. My brother ran the YMCA on Ollie Street, right across the street from Washington Park. And I wasn't working at the time, and but I had an office in his building where I was into music at the time, managing artist development. And the youth used to I would get always get like maybe two or three youth that would come into the little room I was in, the office I was in, and we would talk, and come to find out those are the ones that the staff was having the hardest time corralling. And they kind of just flocked to me. And my brother had some friends that were part of the Hands on Atlanta AmeriCorps Schools program, and so through conversation I joined up. And matter of fact, Stephanie's one of the first teachers I TA for in the program at the time.
Oh,
Elementary school,
How
I was.
about that?
Yeah, yeah. She used to scare me too. Her room, she used to sit like with her back to the window, and the room would be dark. She's like, "Yes, may I help you?" Like, but I learned. But yeah, she was one of the first teachers I TA for, and then from there it just blossomed. It was never really formal. I worked with youth from Franklin Road before they built the Atlanta United
Mhm.
practice facility. In the matter of fact, they tore down the apartments where my after school program was, and they displaced those
Wow.
folks. Uh, that's another segment. And so all the way to East Lake to west side of Atlanta, and then decided to try my hand formally at the school I'm now working with similar populations with special ed.
Hmm.
excellent. So getting into this new school year, I'm vested because, we've all worked with youth development in some form or fashion. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a nephew who I'm very much concerned about his, not even just his mental health, but his physical as well. And we already know that there are pre-existing factors each year that, that have heightened or teach, I don't want to say complain about, but talk about or vocal about. But how have those things, have they accelerated? Have they fallen to the backside now with COVID-19 taking the forefront during this academic year?
I definitely think there's a heightened sense of concern, especially around the theme of students being behind. For the particular population that I've served, there has always been a lot of what I call deficit communication about where children are. The
Mm,
focus being on not meeting a grade level standard that is a mainstream standard, and not really focusing on what can be done on site to assist students and meeting them where they are. That
mm,
is has definitely heightened now. The students who have been labeled behind, chronically behind, are now, you know, oh my God, they're even more so behind. What are we going to do now? Um,
mm,
One of the things that I've tried to do is now anchor the conversations in uh, focusing your programming on a school level to the learners that you have in the building. I feel that's something we should have done a long time ago anyway, but maybe now, because it's happening to everybody across the country,
right.
we can start talking about focusing your programming on the learners in the building and reshaping what it means to be behind. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I definitely think it's been a heightened sense of panic surrounding the learners I've served.
And Jason,
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm talking, not just here, Georgia, but like
Mm-hmm.
nationwide. So my stepmom, she teaches in Long Beach, and I have friends that teach for LA Unified School District in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of it's districts tend to highlight and um, talk talk a lot about the top of their
Mm-hmm.
pyramids. The learners, that the students that come to class on time all the time, that turn in all the work, or the middle to the top of the
Exactly.
pyramid.
mm-hmm,
And it's not that the rest of the students, and we're not talking racially here. We're talking, educationally and
right,
socioeconomics, which crosses all races.
right,
Um, it they don't, not to say they get swept under the rug, but there's not we all know, those of us that are in the building, um, we know that those are the harder to reach. Those are the ones who have more mitigating factors that take away from them learning.
mm-hmm,
That take, they have, they're raising their siblings. They have to have a part-time
mm-hmm,
job. These and all these things. And so now when we're online, those are the same students that are getting catching a lot of grief from
Right.
teachers. And it's the same conversation. Oh, so and so was doing well. Well, yeah, so and so would have did well in the building
Right.
anyway.
mm-hmm,
And so it just highlight, like, teaching practices is highlighting. It's highlighting the inequities of districts that say that their students don't have technology at home will know because they don't have internet. That the only technology is their phone.
mm-hmm,
And it's and but then you also have schools that have, rooms full of iPads that have never been used when they were even
Mm.
in the building.
mm,
So there's definitely, like, technology inequities, teaching pedagogy inequity, things have been. exposed, and then buildings, the what's the status of the buildings have been
Mhm.
exposed. You know, like a lot of these schools. I know DeKalb was under pressure. They just closed, but they're the HVAC systems and
Mm-hmm.
the schools. We always knew the schools look like jails. With the concrete walls, the tiny windows that don't open and whatnot. And now the students have to go back into these buildings with poor ventilation, and then they're substandard. School I'm fortunate. The school I work at, where they're not substandard, and it's pretty state of the art. But we're the minority in the
Mhm.
conversation.
The
You
conversation,
know, and
during summer planning, were teachers involved in the conversation regarding how to operate pandemic classrooms or even virtual classrooms? Because I know that's something that um, I've, doing my research and looking through, and I'm just wondering, do you all know whether or not teachers were a part of the conversation? And then even then, are you privy to the process that they go about choosing the teachers that they choose to be a part of the conversations?
no, well, because this is the part. This still kind of bothers
Mm-hmm.
me. As far as no, and it was kind of it because the districts were operating off the fact that here in Georgia, and I'll say Atlanta, that we were open back in November.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't even, us being still in line now wasn't even a part of the conversation. So it wasn't really a need to, you guys get ready for the long haul. It's, well, do what you can for now, because we're looking at opening again in November. So the virtual training was not there for what I would have liked to seen, like to have
Right.
seen.
Mm-hmm.
The Zoom, yeah, I mean Zoom. You guys, we were shown how to use Zoom, and then from there it was get it how you live.
Mm-hmm.
Here's and again, and I'm gonna say my school, we were already using Google Classroom when we were in person, way prior to it even being a COVID. We were already using Google Classroom and iExcels and different online
Mm-hmm.
um, resources. So the switch was not as difficult for us or our students.
Okay.
But again, we are the minority,
Yeah, I think
and
for
it's
us, like for APS, um, I think there were some teacher advisory committees that may have been involved, but as you were saying, Audrey, the criteria of who was picked and why is very muddy. Like I'm not really sure
mm-hmm.
how they were selected, where, when it happened, when they started seeking participants. It was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a random thing, where they were, building the plane as they were flying it. I don't know how
Yeah.
that came about, but I did hear about there being, advisory committees on the state level and the district level. Um, and to be frank with you, I don't even know who those people were. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
Right. It was like these
Yeah.
ghost teachers. And like, I've never heard of this person. Have you ever? I've never. In APS, not to cut. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
didn't
no,
mean to
no,
cut
you're
you off,
fine.
Abby.
You're okay.
It's a thing in APS, in Atlanta, period. In Atlanta, in general, everybody
Yeah.
knows each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like that 6 degrees of separation thing. APS is
Yeah.
like three. But then when you have committees and nobody knows who these folks are, like, I've never
Mm-mm.
worked with this
Right.
person. It gets a little
Yeah. And
funky.
Yeah.
it was like pure politics. The only person I can think of that I know for sure was involved was the teacher of the year for the district. And I can't call her name, but
Okay.
I think she was one of the people involved. But everybody else, I don't know. I don't know who was
Mm-hmm.
there.
And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing that that concerns me. Again, even though I don't necessarily have a child that is attending school, but having worked within APS in Fulton County school systems as a partner with, with the school system.
Mm-hmm.
It does concern me about teachers being able to have a voice. Like if it was more feasible for there to be a Zoom call, maybe you go by school, and all teachers from this particular school. Like I think the effort is worth it to for that conversation. I'm like, God, well, we got to have a conversation with every single school. Well, yeah, this is a pandemic that we're dealing with, and right now teachers are looking to be the quote unquote heroes of this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, you pinned a very poignant post on Facebook that really made me want to have this conversation. I'll just read a little bit of it, and I would like for you to share what led you to pin this post, and then just give me a little insight on what you were thinking. You said, I find it odd that teachers are being prioritized for vaccinations. Some think it's a good thing. I think it's another way to make teachers responsible for the failures of society. The fact that 1 year later we still have folks who refuse to wear masks or wear them properly, socially distance, or take a break from life as they once knew it. This is why things are not moving along. Now, in a plot twist, teachers who chose not to get vaccinated will become the problem. It will become educators' fault that the numbers aren't going down and we aren't progressing as a whole. Now that, and you were saying about the normal, and you said that normal is dead and gone, and that everyone is looking for it. It goes without saying that the same teachers who will be vilified once again for things they can't control been doing the damn thing pre-COVID, post-COVID, and any other unexpected catastrophe that comes our way. And you go on to thank all your educator friends. And then I also want to let people know that when we say educators, we're talking about the custodial workers, the bus
Mm-hmm.
drivers,
That's
the
right.
paraprofessionals, front
Everybody.
desk,
Yeah,
everyone.
Mm.
Go
because we all play
exactly.
a part
That's
in
right.
that school building.
Students find relationships with not just with their teachers, but with everyone in that building. So Stephanie, give
Absolutely.
me a little insight on what led you to pen that particular post, and what mindset or where were you at that particular time.
Well, I do follow the news, and we get a large amount of correspondence from the district office in the form of emails about vaccination opportunities, testing opportunities, and so forth. And I found myself being annoyed, by the frequency of the information and the tone of the information. And it's like, okay, now, here, the incompetent teachers and educators who aren't really working from home and, you know, aren't taking care of children the way we're supposed to and trying to evade work and et cetera, et cetera. Now
Mm-hmm.
you want us to be the heroes and come and set precedent and example, to herd society in a particular direction. It's like, I feel like, people generally want to talk from both sides of their mouth and want it both ways. Teachers, the heroes, teachers, the people who can't do anything right. And, the real problem for me is just the societal expectations that, time will take care of this issue with COVID, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
Actions, purposeful actions, and meaningful and intentional actions are what change things. And I'm just resentful, as an educator who's been scrutinized and know many who have been over the years, that now it's our burden, to make things right by cooperating with a plan that isn't a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's inconsiderate, and it's another way of deprofessionalizing us as a whole, which has been a problem for decades, the deprofessionalism of education and educators. So, that's where my head was at when I made those posts.
Okay. And Jason, I want you to speak on. I've been doing my research and going about there. Apparently, there's no definitive record or number that records exactly how many educators have passed from COVID-19. However, The American Federation of Teachers, a nationwide union, estimates that more than 530 of their members died of the virus within the past year.
Mm.
And then Education Week, which is like a think tank publication, they have been diligent in documenting those deaths, and they have come up with a number of 707 retired and active educators. Again, that includes bus drivers, paraprofessionals, counselors, nurses, teachers, admins that have passed away. But the one thing that a lot of these districts and state officials are harping on is the fact that there's no evidence to account for their deaths being related to working back within the school system.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, Jason? How do you process that when when you're constantly reading the headlines, and even in districts where I believe it was in Georgia, like in like Kennesaw, I don't know particularly know that county, but like 3 or 4 teachers have died within a month, and two died within an hour of each other. How do you
God, the pairs
Yeah, yeah. So how do you process that when you're seeing these numbers and you're seeing these things, but district officials and state officials are saying, well, there's no evidence to say that they passed away because they contracted this disease being present in the school building.
Well, if we're talking about nationwide, or we're talking about
We can
just in
talk
Georgia
about whichever one, nationwide or Georgia.
or in
How which
Atlanta.
one? I just gave that particular example of the Georgia one because 4 people, within a month working in the school system passed away.
All right, I'll go
Okay.
micro to macro. If we look at Atlanta, Atlanta's never closed. Atlanta's been open, wide open, clubs, parties. They about to have the All-Star game out here, All-Star weekend, you know. So it's easy for folks that, and they, when they claim Metro Atlanta, they go all the way from Gwinnett to as far south as, Riverdale. When they, I'll read articles and say Metro Atlanta, and I look at the city and like, that's not
Right.
Atlanta. But because there's constant contact with the city,
Mm-hmm.
with downtown, with the capital of the state that has never closed, then and schools have these so-called great plans of keeping everybody safe based on the
Mm-hmm.
CDC guidelines. Follow the guidelines, you won't get sick. But did you follow our guidelines? Yes. Well, then you must have got sick somewhere else. And it's an easy conversation here in the middle of the target for where I am. And as you open up the target, as you go larger, it's the same conversation. If the school has a plan set and you follow their plan, then there's no way you could have got sick here with us. This has to be something outside of what
Mm-hmm.
you did here in the school. So sorry for you. Hopefully your sick days cover you being having the quarantine and not work. If you get a positive test and you don't show symptoms, then you're gonna have to teach from home. If you show symptoms and you can't sit and talk because you can't breathe, and you got your sick time. So it plays back into what Stephanie was saying. Like, it sucks that the educators are being put into this thing. We didn't wait like this. I understand healthcare workers. I understand my mom, she works in the hospital back home as well, and I understand her having to go to work. Her profession was to help sick people when they're sick. That's what she wanted to do. You feel me? Like, so when people get sick, she straps on her soldier rag, and she gets her ammunition and her weapon, and she goes to war, and she's with it. And we all know she's gonna do it, and we're all ready for it. But as a teacher, there's many different ways for me to fight this battle, and being in a building where I could possibly, it's not like the worst that could happen is I get diarrhea
Right.
for a couple of days. Like, I could die, pre-existing or not. And so and just to sit back, and we're all educated people. We know when we teach that there's going to be a certain amount of students that we're going to have to help. It's a numbers game. We know what a numbers game is, what it looks like. We all know, and that's what these school districts are playing. They know, okay, well, we can afford to have this amount of people sick. We can afford to have this amount of people not be here any longer, children or staff pass. We can afford it because it won't be everybody if we follow these precautions. These are safeguards, and some people are gonna get sick, but it'll be okay.
Mm.
We can take the casualties, and that's
Mm,
the game that they're playing. And you can't tell me it's not, because
right.
that is what's
Right.
happening.
I went on to the CDC's website to see if I could get some updated information. And the last time this particular information was updated was December 11th of 2020.
Hmm.
And it's funny that it was last updated December 11th because it's called the CDC Weekly COVID Survey. And it's reported that more than 16% of tested school children ages 5 through 17 were COVID positive, and it is actually a higher rate than every other age group. I find it a little ironic that with the CDC being based in Atlanta, that particular city has not been like within the forefront of best practices
Hmm.
because Jason stated, Atlanta has never closed, even though Mayor Bottoms really tried to have this strict tier process with how to open the city and closure and this and the other. Atlanta has never really closed,
Hmm.
but and also reading is saying dependent upon the resources, um, schools can reopen safely, saying mainly students wearing their masks properly. And I know earlier before we got started, you all were talking about the numbers that are within your schools because some schools have opened back up. And I know that Jason, you were also stating depend upon resources, whether it's internet or access to technology, students more or less are flourishing or failing.
Hmm.
What type of resources in both of these opinions do you feel like need to be in place in order for schools to reopen safely and or to remain online, and for those students who are kind of falling behind to be able to at least come up to par so that they aren't like a year or two behind once we move into a new normal?
Well, I know that one of the things, like being involved in response to intervention, I think that one of the best things we can do right now is to restructure um, standards in our building for teaching in tier one, which is like in, their main instructional environment, to meet the needs of the students, instead of
Mm-hmm.
having this mythical, grade level standard that's being held as the norm for schools where 80% of the students are not performing on grade level. So
Mm.
why are we continue to teach towards a standard that's the minority of the students are performing on? So I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
really good time, powerful time to turn the triangle upside down and start catering to these students, the 80%
Mm-hmm.
in the primary classroom environment, doing a lot of small groups,
Mm-hmm.
um, meeting students where they are, regardless of what grade level they're performing on, and using that
Mm-hmm.
as the normative standard for instruction, um, instead of putting the blame of being underperforming on the students and it just being an underperforming school, instead. So,
Okay,
yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, I would agree. The standards, and we it's March, and we're going back into school. We have from the first or second, in fact, the second or third week when school starts till around now to teach all of these things. We don't have like the full 10 months of school because the last, in mid-March through April was testing, review testing, and test prep. So we're moving throughout we're moving through these standards, and it's not great, and it's not classroom mastery. It's top of the pyramid mastery,
Right.
and everybody else kind of get it. And this is in the building. This is in the business. Didn't even talking about online yet. And and teaching special ed, that's part of the issue. Most of my students get extra time because they need they need reinforcements to master this, to remember the skills, because they process slower, so it might take them longer to understand something, but they still got to learn it in the same time span that the gifted students are learning it in. So definitely realigning standards and pacing. Not really, I'm not a big end of the year test person. I'm not real big on it. I don't know if it. I have we have and this is a little aside. We have a test program that called Mastery Connect that we use, and I'll give a student a 5-question quiz on Mastery Connect, and they'll fail it. I give them the same exact 5 questions, and I'll do it on a Google Doc or on a Word doc, and they just highlight their answers, and they get it right. But they get so nervous about it being Mastery Connect that they forget that they know what they know. And that happens with a lot of our other students. It's not taking into effect test anxiety and the pressure that the school goes in this big testing time. Let's go. There's songs and there's dance and all this shit, and kids are sitting and kids are sitting there nervous, like, oh my God, if I don't pass it, I'm gonna fail. And it's like, no, you're good. Don't worry about it. Online in this virtual world, it's the same thing, same pacing, same standards, and then they're trying to force the same exact schedule that we were being at school, and it just it has not worked, and there was no willingness to switch it up, to change it, to try something different, to learn from schools like Georgia Cyber Academy that do this, and or even just take best practices and figure something out. Like this isn't. These are children. We're not making widgets. There's no one way to make a widget. They're gonna learn. I mean, there's no one way to make a child. You know what I mean? Like they're still learning. With I have a lot of leeway because I teach special ed, so I throw ADA, the American Disabilities Act, and my IEP on and say, listen, when they're not going to this class, we're going to do it like this because it works better with their speciality, and I throw the words on them. So because I know I get more out of them for certain subjects in the morning than the afternoon. So I like, okay, you don't worry about coming to class today, but get this work done. Here's my Google Voice number. Text me if you need help. And I have the autonomy to kind of move around a little more wiggle room than some of the gen ed teachers. But trying to recreate a classroom, and we're sitting at the computer from 8:30 to 3 o'clock, and the kid is sitting at the computer from 8:30 to 3 o'clock. Just sitting there at the computer on a Zoom, and there's activities, and some teachers are doing like these great things. They get to get outside and move around at the house and all that. But at the end of the day, they still got to sit. They still got to learn the material because we're still held to the same standards or the same standards as if they was in the classroom. And it just doesn't. It just doesn't work that way online. It just doesn't. I've taken online classes and it just doesn't work that way. I read it when I want to, and I take and then I still pass. It's not that I didn't learn. So this virtual thing, I really wish that I really saw this as an opportunity to try something new, try something different, try something fun, and it was just, and it didn't happen. Not across the board. Individual teachers, yes, but in the same poop butt teachers that were in the building were even worse online.
And it's so interesting because even in this space, this compromised space for in-person learning and virtual learning, you still have teachers who are trying to refer kids for retention and refer kids for tier 2 and 3 plans to which I informed them. And it's so funny because they're so dumb with me because I've said to them, okay, this child that you're so concerned about their performance, they're actually number 5 in their class on this particular assessment out of 25 kids. So actually, there are 20 other children who are not performing on grade level either. That's what I mean about that majority piece. So what are we going to do? Refer all of them?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
we need to restructure totally like how we're teaching kids, because this normal of on grade level dream, all of that is like we have to deal with. We have to meet students where they are and let go of that.
Right. Right. Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Moving now more into the whole vaccination conversation because you have these parent petition groups who are pushing for teachers to, in their words, go back to work because they feel like teachers are sitting at home and they've gotten too comfortable doing the whole virtual teaching.
Mm-hmm.
They are pushing for teachers to become vaccinated. And I'm just wondering, do you agree with teachers being pushed to become vaccinated? And do you feel like that same campaign should apply to the students as well?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. I think that this is the same group of people who are misinformed about what teachers actually do, and what our responsibilities are. I think that they are misinformed about vaccine being a cure. Just because you get the vaccine does not mean you will not get COVID. It just lessens your chances and experience on the negative side with COVID. So it's not a magic pill. And once again, back to the post that you shared that I put on social media, teachers are expected to be, the heroes in this thing, you know, with backhanded compliments and, shady references about, we need to be put back to work,
Mm-hmm.
get the vaccine and get us back on track. So it's like you want our help, but you're being shady and saying disrespectful things. It's just, it's foolish. I don't I don't agree with it. You know, I think it's a way for us not to be accountable as a whole, as a society, and just to make one
Mhm.
group of people responsible for the outcome.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I agree. I'm not with it. Like a vaccine is not an antidote. This isn't like we watch. I don't know. Prima, you're kind of young. I don't know if you remember, but like watching the old Batman movie, the Batman and Robin TV show, and Batman always, Joker would have some type of poison, and Batman would always run to the Batcave and I'm making an antidote for it, and you
Mhm.
take it real quick, and you're
Mhm.
like, it's not. That's not what this is. That's not what a vaccine is. If that was the
Right.
case, you
Mm.
wouldn't have. They wouldn't push the flu vaccine every year. If that was, you take it one time and you be straight. Not
Mm-hmm.
any further. I've never had a flu shot. You know, that's not comparing COVID to the flu, but a virus
Mhm.
is a virus, is a vaccine is a vaccine, in my opinion. Um, Now, safeguards to keep myself safe. Oh yes, I'm going to do the common sense things that's going to keep me from contracting any from a cold to a flu to whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't think that folks should be forced to
Okay.
get a vaccine. Like that's not children either. That's just not anything that has to go in, like that's I'm not with that at all. Um, it's not again it's not an antidote. It's just something like
Gotcha. So,
no,
how
no,
do unions
no.
in your, because I know Jason, you've been very vocal about this on social media. How do unions play a part in the conversation between educators and state regulations? Looking into Georgia, I'm not seeing an actual union, but I see advocacy groups. And do you feel they hold the same power as an actual union?
No. Mm-mm.
No, they don't at all. Coming from a place where, my dad, he worked in Compton Unified School District all my life. He retired maybe 2 years after I came to Atlanta. So probably like 2012 or
Mm-hmm.
13. I came in 2009, so some years after that. But I was in Atlanta when he retired, and he was working there since I was about 3 or 4. And the district itself was, we're not doing the teachers right. There was some pay issues. And so we're gonna strike. And my dad was like, "It's not fair," and he was ready. He was ready to go because there was somebody who was not a part of the school or the district or the state who was able to speak on behalf of the teachers, or the teachers could go to um, to
Mm-hmm.
speak about things that were not correct and to get help correcting these things. As a teacher, if the district is doing
Right.
wrong, you can't go to the principal because the principal is paid by the district. If as a teacher, you can't go to the district office to, to,
Mm-hmm.
to complain about what the state is doing because the state controls the district. And so as a teacher, there's so many different things that we have to that not things that we have to complain about, but that we would like to fix. And there's nobody. The advocacy
Right.
groups
Okay.
don't have the same power as a union would. The thing about Georgia is, if teachers strike or try to form a
Mm-hmm.
union, they run with risk of losing their
Right.
Okay.
certification, or being fired. Um, like, it's not like Chicago, which, more power to them brothers and sisters out there that are, they sitting outside. They say they have to come in, they have to go to the building or they're gonna get fired. So they went and posted up in the snow outside on their computers to
Mm.
teach because the buildings were just trash
See?
and it wasn't safe for them to be in. And they didn't even have students, you know. I know in the UTLA, the LA Unified Union, they're fighting because of, now it's not even so much about going, like, not wanting to go in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just fix the buildings and maybe we'll have a better chance. But without that, then nobody would. It would be like it is in Georgia: either go in the
Mm-hmm.
Right.
building or don't come back. And did a lot of
Mm-hmm.
good teachers have quit. They quit. Like, I'm not, or this is their last. Like, I'm,
Right.
because of the
Yeah.
way
See,
they
we don't
were
have
treated. They're
collective
like, this is my last year
bargaining
teaching.
here. We it's a right to
And
work state, so we
Mm-hmm.
can't. We don't have the autonomy like to organize in those ways. One of the remnants of the Confederacy, in my opinion, but
Uh,
that's something else.
right, and so that kind of and that throws everything, because now, in this instance here, now you have, take a teacher where I where you don't have any, like, risk factors that would limit. In some I don't even know if some districts
Mm-hmm.
are even considering risk factors for teachers and allowing them to stay virtual. You know, I know a teacher in DeKalb who like bad asthma. And it flares up here and there, but when it flares up, it flares. And I was talking to him the other day, and he was like, "Yo, if I die teaching, if I die
mm.
educating students, then I've lived
Mm-mm.
my life's purpose, and
That's
that's
not
just
the
what it's gonna
stand.
be." I was like, "Nah, homie, that's not." Because now what you have teachers who are torn. Like, they're making life decisions because they don't want to go into the school because they know it's just not safe.
Right.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
not safe. Give it to at least next school year at the very least. But you're pressing these plans to
Mm-hmm.
go into the
Mm-hmm.
building that haven't really changed since October, November. That you're repeating. And so, and you're telling teachers, you can't,
Right.
you got to go. You're giving the students the option. Great, thank you, at the very least. you know but, like, but you got teachers who are gonna go in that building, and because of the sheer their sheer attitude, they're just not gonna want to do it. Like, why am I being here and give my all,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Mm-hmm.
care about me? You don't care. Now, we're there for the kids and everything, and that's why they're in the building. That's why they didn't just say, yo, you know what, I'm not coming back. Because for the children, they
Right.
don't want to leave the children hanging for this school year. We started together, we'll end together as best we can, but there's nobody to there's no representation. I now I do applaud the Georgia DOE superintendent who who was very vocal about the testing situation, and um, limiting the weight of the end of year
Mm-hmm.
tests this year and whatnot, because
Mm-hmm.
once the waivers were denied for no testing, um but where's the rest of it? Like, it's like, okay, that was like point one
Right.
of 15, homie. Like, where's the other 14 points? Why are these buildings open? Why, like,
I
I'm
don't
pretty
I
sure
know.
Washington
don't.
High School
I
still,
don't
I don't
know.
even, did they ever fix the
The
mold?
last time
And the
Yep.
coldest part is the
And her
superintendent of
daughter.
APS had COVID. Like, come on, man. Like, come on, man. Like,
right.
and so this is lets me know that we all are slaves to something, to somebody, in some form, or some form of, and this isn't, and the decision that's being made is not being made on a school district or state level, and so that's what, well, on a school
Yeah.
level, because Clayco still hasn't been, they're still remaining virtual, they're not open. And so now it's like, okay, well, why aren't they opening? So this is where the
Mm-hmm.
union would come in. So, hey, union rep, what's going on over there in Clayco? Why don't you go see what's going on? Let's have a meeting, form a committee, bring some people over. What you guys doing different over there? All right, well, bet.
Mm-hmm.
Union rep, listen, we
Yeah,
want to do
they
what
say
they're
this
doing.
Dr. Beasley, they say he's not to
So,
be played with. Like
but we don't have that pop.
he's not going for it at all. This mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. So then now it's like, so who do we have to go to fight on our behalf? The worst position you could
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in ever is to not be able to speak up for yourself. Whether it's through the legal system or how we're sitting now. You can't
Mm-hmm.
even
Oh God, not the town hall.
voice your concerns at our town hall. Okay, well, you pick and
Yep.
choose which questions. Listen, they pick and choose which questions they're gonna ask out loud, and then when they go to then if you go to the teacher town hall, or the in school conversation, and then you go to the
Mm-mm.
the
Mm-mm.
the public conversation. Oh, it ain't the same. It ain't the same words. So it's like guys, this is we can't play politics here.
Mm-hmm.
We can't play spin doctors. We got to be. We're dealing with people's children. We're dealing with like again. The worst that can happen is not diarrhea, it's death. So let's be 100. Let's be completely honest. Yes, this virtual thing is hard on everybody. It is hard
Mm-hmm.
because it takes a different type of training to be able to sit at a computer all day and teach children that you cannot see while their mom is yelling at them about washing the dishes. Their dog is jumping on the computer. They babysitting they siblings. They power just went out, so they don't have internet. They broke their computer. Don't want to tell you, so they're going 2 weeks and they haven't logged in. Like, it's a whole different monster. And instead of trying to
Mm,
figure out
yeah,
how
they
to
sure
really
will.
do that over the summer, they was worried about going back in the building and keeping
Yep.
things the same.
Right.
And we knew the
Mm-hmm.
same was
Okay.
broken before,
We're gonna
before now.
wrap it up with this last question. And Stephanie, I'll let you answer first. What's ahead for you as an educator?
Well, one of the main things that I'm wanting to do is assist and support any sorts of changes in education. If I can do it with Atlanta, that'd be great, or any other district to establish true equity for students in learning, not just this designer equity and other trendy types of equity that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe
Mm-hmm.
that equity is rooted in respect and worthiness and appreciation. I don't think we're at that point with the students that I've been serving. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
continue to support um, policies and programming that are equity based in urban school districts.
Okay. Jason?
Right.
And letting urban school districts know equality and equity aren't the same thing. All right, and for me, it's continuing to serve
Mhm.
um those students that are often forgotten, or that are that need just that wanted that extra little push to to succeed. That whether that be in school or out of school, whether that be in a community setting, whether that be in a school. But my focus has been and will always be working with educators that understand that part of the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and youth that are willing to work, whether that be in the build in a
Well,
school
I thank
building
you
or
both
in a
for your
community setting.
time, your experience, and also your know-how on what's going on. I've been educated and enlightened during this conversation, and I'm sure my listeners will be as well. Till next time, everyone. See you back here, same time, same day, same great content. Peace.
All right.